ready to begin. We are here and ready to go.
Okay, great. Let me introduce myself. I'm Veronica Schmerling. The important person here is Agnes Rocher. She's my mom, and she is 93 years old. So if you do the math, she was born in 1928. So, and she was 16 during the war. So pretty much the same age you are now, 16, 17, 18, I'm presuming. So let me just give you a little background. She was born in a little town in Hungary called Győr-Szentmárton. And
famous.
yeah, well, we're just going to talk a little bit. And her dad was a butcher. Her mom helped in the groceries or in the store and helped things run along. I have to tell you that in 1944, the Germans came into Hungary and they deported all the Jews. They took them on trains, 430,000 of them, all got headed towards Auschwitz, which is an extermination camp. If you put that in perspective, the population of Pittsburgh is 330,000. So that's a whole lot of people. And if you break that down even more, okay, from May 1940, when the Germans started exterminating Jews, until 1945, when they finished, 6 million Jews were murdered. That means every 3 months, 330,000 Jews got killed. That's the population of Pittsburgh. And if you take that in on a very personal level, your Montour school district, which I checked this morning, actually my husband checked, that encompasses Robinson, Kennedy, Ingram, Thornburg, and Pennsbury Village, I believe. So if you took your whole school district and annihilated it every 12 days for 5 years, that's the amount of people that were murdered. So remember, you're in high school 4 years. We're talking 5 years, every 12 days. So maybe that gives you an idea of the scope of this. It's enormous. It's hard to comprehend. But maybe this will help a little bit. So let me be very quick about Mom's life, and then you can start with your questions. So when she was 16 years old, she got taken to the ghetto, which is where they herded Jews together. And then she was taken to Auschwitz, where she was selected. I don't know if you know about this, but when they got off the trains, some of them were sent directly to the ovens to be burned, and some of them went to work. Mom was tall and blonde and healthy. She was 16. She got sent to work. So she stayed in Auschwitz for a while, and then she got taken up to Bremen, Bremen is in northern Germany, and she sifted through rubble. It's a port city. It's cold. She got taken there in the winter. She doesn't have a coat or boots. And they worked and they worked and they worked, and they got very little food. Near the spring, this was in March sometime, they got transported down to a place called Bergen-Belsen, which was an extermination camp. And there, she got very, very sick. She got something called typhus, very bad disease. And she, at that point, weighed some 70 odd pounds. And Mom at that age was 5'6.5". She was very, very weak. And I'll tell you one little aside, maybe because it is Valentine's Day, and this is a story that some stories are stranger than fiction. My mom had a boyfriend before the war, and he lived in an adjacent town, and he was 5 years older, and his name was George. He too, like all the Hungarians, were taken away, but he was in a work detail for most of the war. But likewise, he was shipped to Bergen-Belsen, like so many Hungarian Jews at the end of the war, to be exterminated. So there would be no evidence left. Well, They found each other in April before extermination. They found that they were alive, and one was in the girls' camp, one was in the boys' camp, or the men's camp. And it's a bit of a story, which we can go into later if you want, but Mom and Dad were both liberated in April 1945, in the middle of April, the 15th. They realized that they were alive on the 13th. On the 15th, they were liberated by the British Army. And at that point, my dad was in better health than my mom. He nursed her back to health with the support of the British Army's medic. And it took about 5 months before Mom. No, we're talking April, May, June, July, August, September. 6 months. They finally went home in September to see who was alive. So it took her 6 months to get well enough to be able to travel. They got married the following year in 1946. They moved to France for 13 years, and then they came to Pittsburgh. So this is her story. Oh, yesterday, February 2nd, was 60 years that we have been in Pittsburgh. I was born in Paris. When I was 4, we came to Pittsburgh in 1961. So it's been 60 years since my mom and my brother and I and my dad, who is no longer living, have been in Pittsburgh. So this has a very happy ending for our family, but not for most families. So, Tiffany, should we go on to questions? It's up to you.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like I just watched like a full-length motion picture and went through so many emotions in such a short amount of time. So those of you who have the paper, they are numbered. You have questions to ask, and if we can go in that order, just speak very loudly so that she can hear you. If you need to like move your mask temporarily so that you can speak clearly, that's fine. Okay, so our first question.
What was your life like before it was interrupted by the war and the Shoah?
What was your war like before it was interrupted by the war?
I went to school.
You went to school. And how did you go to school?
Well, we took the train. There was a bus, but I was nauseated from the odor of the bus. And I had to get up very early in order to take the train. And we had big winters too. And that wasn't at home. I had to help Mother. She was very strict. And when she was market day and help my father, I have to cook the dinner. And that's what was my life. Work, school. That was it.
You had some girlfriends.
But yes, a few girlfriends, but everybody was in the same shoe. Like me, you had to go, get up early and take the train to school. So, and it was, I had to get up every day before 6 o'clock. And it was 3 o'clock when I got home from school. And then I made my homework. And if there was something, Mother said, you can do that. Do help me. And that was it. So I was telling my mother that I have to do more home helping than any other friend of mine. They were just relaxing. And when I was in the camp, I said in my mind, thank you, Mother. because it's easier to support it that you train me that work, work, and work.
What were you like when you were a teenager?
What were you like as a teenager?
It, it was nothing, not a big thing. The good thing was that as I went on vacation to my aunt, that's how I met my future family. And I have aunt and uncle who lived in Budapest, and then in winter time we went up. My parents let me go to my uncle, and my boyfriend bought opera ticket, concert ticket. It was wonderful. He was very smart, very well educated, and he was my teacher. I learned a lot from him. That's all can add. That was my teenager. Very short,
Very short, because at 16, she was taken away from everything she knew.
Yes, and I was certainly not prepared for that terrible, terrible place. And we were working like men. The city was partly bombed, and we worked for a building company, and we had to take out from the rubble bricks, no gloves, no good shoe.
Lumber, whatever was usable.
Yes, and there was quite a few prisoners of war, and they didn't work. And when they saw that this young girl did this hard labor, they just shake their head. And when the alarm came, well, the guard took us because they were afraid for their life, but they put us in a corner. And the people just looked at it, this young girl, and said, "Who are they?" And they say, "These are criminals."
Oh, So this is up in Bremen in northern Germany when she was used as slave labor.
Yeah. And of course, to tell you, we had no food during the day. Nothing till evening. And then they gave a soup, which I still believe that it was thickened with sawdust. And I was so nauseated from it, I could not eat it. So you can imagine, I was just skin and bone. I looked like a 7, 8 years old child.
So, as a whole, how did the war and everything you experienced change you?
Okay. The question was, how did the war and the experiences you had change you?
Well, I know that you have to appreciate the good thing in life, because you never know what will happen to you. And I thank my mother that she forced me to do things, but many teenager parents didn't. And I think that's helped me a lot.
Okay.
Pat, what do you think your life would have been like had it not been interrupted by the Holocaust?
What would your life have been like had it not been interrupted by the Holocaust?
I don't know. I really don't know. I certainly would not be married at 18, that's for sure. And if we would have got married with my husband, we would have not stayed in Hungary. It was a very anti-Semitic country. Even that there were families who favored certain Jew family, and we were fortunate because my ancestor lived in Hungary probably 100 years, at least 100 or 200 years before I was born. And they were always hard-working family, and they served the Hungarian army. My grandmother gave one son who died in the First World War, and the second lost his one leg. So it wasn't right that served the country and still had to be gone to Auschwitz. And my husband feel the same way. And I am sure if we would have later on got married, we would not stayed in Hungary. He always wanted to study at the university in Paris. And because in Hungary a Jew could not go to the university.
I think something else that was different because of the war was Mom was not able to finish high school. So her education was interrupted. And I know that for her, that was, very important. But she had to learn outside of school.
Yes.
She became a big reader and enjoyed culture.
And I had a wonderful husband who taught me like a private teacher. He was very smart, very read, very knowledgeable, spoke 3 languages fluently, and he taught me so much. I cannot tell you how it was wonderful to have a private teacher.
What was stolen from you and your family during the Shoah?
What was stolen from you and your family during
Everything, everything. We had to walk out with a small luggage, what was just strictly necessary, first to the ghetto. And I had long blonde hair, and my mother cut it. I was not
braided?
and she cut it. And even so, in the ghetto, there were German officers who were planning the trip to Auschwitz, and they did see that I am a Jew. So he asked me what I am doing in the ghetto. And I said, I am with my parents. So that was a frightening experience.
But everything was taken, all their family goods, the house.
And in it, everything.
Everything.
So when the war was over, the village was called that people who talk Jewish furniture. Please bring it to a certain place, and maybe the few people who came back in the whole village, the only mother who came back was my mother.
So, to clarify, maybe during the war, all the houses were either vacant or they were taken over by other villagers who stayed. They were taken over. People ransacked those houses and took everything. They were looted. Everything went out of those houses. So what she was saying at the end of the war, they requested that anybody who had Jewish possessions of any kind, take it to a central location. Well, not everybody owned up to having taken something, so only certain people brought back certain items. Other than that, you know, you had no recourse, zero.
No, I was separated in Auschwitz from my mother, and that was a very, very frightening, painful thing for me, because, you know, on that terrible situation, your mother was the refuge, some kind of a security, and of course, the love of your mother. And that was very, very difficult for me, that I was put in a group that nobody I knew. And I was so young. And I have to add that when we were liberated, right away, the news from one working place to the other went. So we started to know who survived from where. And my mother was a very athletic person, and she was just 42 years old. And I was so positive that she survived. And when the list went all around, I could not find my mother's name. And I just could not believe it. So when I became a human being again, my boyfriend said, let's get married. Sweden asked for refugees, they would give us home. And he said, let's go there. And I said, I cannot do that. I have to go back to Hungary and see with my eyes that my mother didn't survive. I have to do that. So he had no choices. I told him, I said, if you don't want to do that, apparently our love is not strong enough, but I am going back to see with my own eye that my mother is not living. So he said, okay. I said, and we will get married when my mother and your mother, which I knew from younger time, both our mothers will be there. So it was not an easy thing to go back to Hungary. We took train and advancing very primitive Russian army, what they sent to occupy Hungary, they were extremely dangerous people. And they would go to you and take a wristwatch or whatever they wanted. And they were allowed because they thought that the Hungarians were very hard on the advancing Russian army. So finally, we took some time the train, and finally, a beautiful sunny day, we were sitting on the step on a train because the Russian took the locomotive. And I see a man, we were already in Czechoslovakia. And I see somebody walking very familiar. That was George's first cousin, who walking in the train and wanted to go to Hungary. Mm. And he looked at us, he said, "Yeah, you are alive." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, I have to get to tell you good news. Both of your mother are alive." I told him, my husband, "You see, I had a good..." So finally, we arrived to Budapest and we are taking the train. I have to tell you, because that was, I will never, ever forget that situation. We took the train going home from Budapest. And he said, "You know, George's mother is on the train." So we started like crazy, running from one compartment to another. And he was facing his mother. She was screaming. Oh, what a joy. There was not a dry eye in that train. I just have to tell you how miraculous things can happen.
And I think each survivor story is that miraculous. There are elements of that in every survivor story. And that's why they should be read. And next question.
What lesson or lessons do you want to impart on young people today?
What lessons do you want to tell young people today?
Love each other. Love each other. You never know what can happen in life. You see, today we are in a very dangerous situation. And everybody who can survive this, it's a lucky person.
Okay.
The Holocaust Center in Pittsburgh has now been around for 40 years. How has the Holocaust Center been a part of your life?
Well, when I came to Pittsburgh, when the Queen Mary, that's what we talk.
They're asking you how the Holocaust Center is important in your life, or what happened in your life. It's been around 40 years, so not when we arrived, but 20 years later.
Well, you know, so many events happen in people's life. But for me, Holocaust Center was always a very, very important thing, because so many people forget what a terrible injustice happened to the Jews. And I always was happy to
Support.
support it and teach people that such a cruelty should not ever, ever happen.
Good, good.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the Holocaust story that we have not asked about you about?
Is there something else you want to tell the students?
Well, just be just with each other as humanly possible, because this is such a hard time, and respect each other's life.
So our final official question before we get into student questions is for the candle.
Is there anyone for whom you like this candle? If so, can you tell us a little about that person?
Okay, well, I don't know. Can you see that we have a candle in front of us or not?
But
Pardon me?
we can't see it.
Okay, I'm gonna raise it up then. And Mom, you want to light this candle
Yeah,
in memory of, here.
the aunt. And
Father.
first of all, my father, who I love so dearly, and all those uncle, aunt, cousins. I cannot enumerate how many of my family perished in the camp. That this should never, ever, any form happen to people.
Thank you. We do have a few student questions if you're still willing to answer some of those.
Are you willing to answer a few more questions from the students?
Yes.
Peter, you had a question that you wanted to ask. So can you jump on, Peter, and ask your question?
Yes. What role has religion played in your life, and how is it impacted by the Holocaust?
How has religion impacted your life?
I was not an over-religious person. My parents were modern Jews. We observed the high holidays, but we had no kosher kitchen. But we ate
Kosher style?
kosher style.
But being a Jew, has that made any difference in your life and with the Holocaust?
It's very interesting that even that I suffered so much, I never wanted to hide that I am a Jew. Some people went away completely from the religion because they said God would not have to allow that this happened to the Jews. But I never questioned what God intended to do with the Jews. But I knew I am a Jew, and I don't hide it, and I will die as a Jew, and I will be buried in a Jewish cemetery next to my husband one side, and the other side is my mother. And I think I cannot choose a better place.
Speak loudly.
So, in your new life following the Holocaust, trying to create just new beginnings, how were you able to set your soul free after being stuck in an internal prison, essentially, from leaving the internment camp or concentration camp, excuse me?
Well, I missed a part of it. How can you repeat the center part? Did you say your soul?
Yeah, setting your own soul free after kind of an internal prison, just in your own mind, leaving the Holocaust and all the trauma and things that it has caused you.
Okay. They want to know, after all the trauma of the Holocaust and the imprisonment of your soul, not only your body, but your soul, everything, your mind, how did you set yourself free in order to live a life that, quite frankly, was very normal, was very, how do you re-enter, I guess, mankind, and how do you live after that?
I never think about that we Jews had to suffer so much. I was fortunate, life was good to us. I have a wonderful family, and if you would think about it, you would go. You would not have a normal life. So it happened, and we cannot change that. And of course, I cannot forget any moment of it. But life goes on. You cannot live with that. And you just enjoy today's life. Me, myself, I enjoy my children, my grandchildren, and my great grandchildren. The only thing I question, how come that in 93, with all this, I am still around?
I think on a personal note, I think Mom survived both physically and emotionally and spiritually because she was so young. She was 16 when she was taken. She was 17 when she was working up in Bremen. She was liberated, a liberated skeleton. At 18, she was married. At 18, you have your whole life ahead of you. And I think the youth was such a great motivator to make a life, to strive to have a normal life, to go back to what you knew because it was so comforting and so good. And that would be a normal life, or even a better life. You know, leaving Hungary made for a much better life. It wasn't easy, but every step made a better life. And I think the energy and of youth and the spirit of somebody who's 16, 17, 18 is just undeniable.
But I could not live in Hungary, that's for, I can never forgive them that what they did to the Jews. So that's the only thing. I am very, very happy to live in the United States and 60 years in Pittsburgh. This is my home, and I am very privileged to be able to live in the United States.
So Hannah, do you want to ask your question?
So what can us young people do to ensure nothing like this ever happens? Or like what can us young people, especially in Pittsburgh, do to ensure that nothing like this, like the Holocaust or hate crimes, ever happen again?
Well, it's very difficult, but I think you have to wisely choose your leaders. When you vote, think about it very hardly, that what this person lead us to. And I think that's a very important thing, because your future depends on it.
One more?
She's coming up to the front. Just a second.
What piece of hope did you hold on to during the Holocaust and your time in the concentration camp?
What piece of hope did you hold on to during the camp and the Holocaust? What piece of hope? What made you put one foot in front of the other? What made you keep going instead of saying, I'm done, I'm just going to lay down and die?
Well, you know, everybody wants to live. And I was very privileged that I was blessed with such an exceptional husband. And after that, wonderful, wonderful children. And I enjoy the future generation because the grandchildren are grown already, but the great, great grandchildren, I am so lucky to be able to have such a wonderful family.
I have to ask you though, Mom, when you were in Bremen, what kept you going? Was it the thought of going back home to see your mother and father? Was it to see George, your boyfriend? Was it an anger? Was it what was it that burned in you that kept you alive, do you think?
Well, we just did it. We didn't. Our mind was not strong enough to. We just wanted to live one more day. And just that's what we did. We didn't think further. Just to live one more day and hopefully see our family.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I mean, hearing you talk about such positivity in such a dark period of your life and in history, it's heartwarming, inspiring, and students, any final you want to add or say before we?
Probably just thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're saying thank you if you can't hear them in the background. You have many thanks.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
My pleasure. All the happiness to every one of you.